There's a certain energy in the Real Talk studio today. I don't know what's going on. It's positive, I can tell you that much. I think we're going to have some fun today. Hoyles is telling me I don't even have to wait the half hour you might think I'd have to wait before getting into a Bobby Margarita. Bobby Margarita himself will be joining us in about a half hour from now. The original hockey insider, Bob McKenzie. Beauty above all beauties. He'll be joining us in about a half an hour. We'll talk about his new venture, Bobby Margarita. Plus, obviously, we'll talk about the National Hockey League pulling out of the Beijing Olympic Games. We'll be talking about the NHL postponing its schedule till after the holidays. And, of course, the World Junior Hockey Championship, which, I mean, Bob's been the guy at the WJCs and evaluating young talent around the world, the up-and-comers, the up-and-coming superstars that'll soon grace the sheet that is the National Hockey League. That's coming up in a half hour. Great show between now and then as well. But first, let me remind you that this show is presented by the team at Bitcoin Well. I think that this is now the time where even those of you that say I'm not the type to panic, you're maybe feeling a little bit of panic if you haven't figured out what you're going to be stuffing stockings with or putting under the tree. Why not get somebody their first foot in the door when it comes to cryptocurrency, in particular Bitcoin? You look and you say Bitcoin's like 60 grand or something like that. You don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. You can give someone $25 worth of Bitcoin or $50 worth of Bitcoin or buy somebody $100 worth of Bitcoin and watch it grow or fall. It's just a fun gift idea to get somebody into the mix, and the team at Bitcoin Well can help you out. Check them out online at bitcoinwell.com.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
Coming up in less than 10 minutes, we'll call it 5 from now, Supriya Dwivedi and Jana Pruden, two of, quite honestly, my favorite media personalities in the country. Jana, of course, with the Globe and Mail, an award-winning feature writer, and Supriya Dwivedi, who's been on the show many times, a political analyst, former radio host, and a member of our Real Talk editorial board. Before we go anywhere, I have to show this video. Here's what people are buzzing about today. If you didn't see this, I tweeted it out. It was originally shared by a reporter for City News by the name of Laura Krause. Laura does a great job. If you're listening on the podcast, we'll describe this for you. This happened on a North Edmonton street. This happened in our city yesterday. Let's roll it, Sam. This is absolutely wild to see. This is a grader, like basically a snowplow, a grader pushing a car, what has to be at least 100, maybe 150 meters, spins the car around. The woman, the driver, falls out of the door and appears to have, you can kind of hear her screams, actually. It's a little bit blood-curdling, but she appears to have her arm stuck underneath the vehicle. Edmonton police confirming that she was taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Can we roll that one more time, Sam, just to take a look at here? We're not going to speculate here on what happened or what the story is. I've seen all kinds of people on social media making different claims about this was an incident of road rage. I highly doubt that, to be honest with you. Some people said, well, they had heard that the grader driver was on his phone. I don't know, that sounds to me to be a little bit unrealistic. And other people are suggesting, I talked to a couple heavy equipment operators yesterday. One in particular works for a big company. He's run graders before himself. He says there's no way the grader operator would have even known she was there. He said the size of these machines, the noise, the blind spot, the fact that if the blade was down, there would have been resistance on the road anyway. The blade doesn't appear to be all the way down, by the way, but for context there, people are still trying to figure out what's going on. We obviously wish the driver of the car a full recovery. You know, people are saying, what was she, like, as her door opens, the car gets whipped around and she falls out. And then gets pinned. It appears that her arm is caught under the car. I can't confirm that for sure, but that's what it appears to be. People are saying, well, why would you get out of the car? I'm sitting there thinking, she is in a moment of sheer panic. Like out of nowhere, who knows? Maybe she's listening to Bing Crosby sing the Christmas hits, and then the next thing you know, she's being pushed. Her whole car's being pushed by a mighty machine. And
what am I supposed to do?
What am I supposed to do?
Do I stay here? Do I get out? Like, I'm going to be crushed? Like, what? When I first saw it, I thought, oh, this driver must have really pissed this grader. And then I watched it again, and I was like, oh no, they don't even know that car is there.
I don't think the grader even knew the car was there. And then as it sort of appears as though it's hitting kind of like an on or like a merge lane, and so it's kind of starting to turn, and that's when the car whips around. And I think that must be when it caught the grader operator's eye. So we don't know the details of it. It's just a remarkable video, and somebody I can say, quite honestly, cheated death in that circumstance, especially falling out of the car oh my goodness, absolutely wild stuff. On the international front, Sarah, there's been a development here. This will be of interest to absolutely anybody on planet Earth. The FDA, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, has authorized the first pill. This is one from Pfizer, known as Paxlovid, the first pill for COVID-19. What's the dish?
So it's not a vaccine. Let's put it that way, straight out of the gates. What it is if someone gets sick and they are experiencing symptoms, then they can take this and it nips it in the bud. It basically helps prevent hospitalization and really, severe illness. Canada will not be getting it before the new year. And, people are talking that means it's not going to mitigate the worst effects of, the Omicron
So this is not
wave.
but this is not a get ahead of COVID pill. This is if you are diagnosed with COVID and you're susceptible to what they think might be serious illness,
Correct.
Pre-existing conditions, things like that, then this is the pill that might be for you.
Yeah, it's not vaccine in a pill. It is helping you to get what might be a really bad case of COVID under control.
Yeah, you had an interesting point as we were kind of chewing the fat on this. No, but I think it's irrelevant. I mean, I wouldn't rule anything out at this point. But you had a really interesting point. It's actually one that I might not have thought of.
Well, as soon as I thought I saw it, I thought, oh, does that mean that people are going to be like, well, now I don't need to get vaccinated because
Right.
I could just pop this pill, no big deal, and then I'm healthy again. But then I was also like, well, but if they're not getting vaccinated, they'll probably just stick with their ivermectin.
Yeah. Oh, geez. Yeah. So you can let us know what you think about that in the live chat. We'll be keeping an eye on our hashtag as well, Real Talk RJ. I love this photo from our friends at Park Power. You know that they're, of course, powering our hashtag each and every morning. This photo is of Chris Kozowski. This is the founding what does he call himself? CEO, president? He's the big cheese is what he is at Park Power with his signature bow tie holding up that big solar panel. You know what I love about this the most is it kind of actually ties in to another sponsor of ours who we'll be talking about a little bit later on in the show. Of course, I'm referencing Kubi Energy, but I love this one from Park Power. Give them a follow on Instagram. They say, join our solar club. We'll reward you for your contribution to Alberta's renewable energy with some of the best solar power buyback rates in the province. How cool is that? So when you think of Park Power, I know you think of internet, electricity, natural gas, but if you've got solar installed in your home or you're considering it, reach out to Park Power on their website or via the sponsors tab on ours, RyanJesperson.com, for more information. We're really proud to be featuring Kendall Jackson as our Real Talk Wine of the Month. This is obviously a fabulous vintner. Everybody knows Kendall Jackson in the United States. It's one of the more prominent houses, if I can say. Look at this Kendall Jackson winery featured at KJ.com. In the entire United States, certainly on the west coast of the United States, we love their commitment to sustainability. And that's why we've been proud to promote them this month, including the fact that they're using the largest solar generator in the wine industry, period. Plus, their process uses 1/3 less water than industry standard. Those are two of the reasons why they've been named Green Company of the Year by the drinks business for 2020. It's a big deal. You're probably going to be picking up some wine for the holidays of the next couple of weeks. Keep an eye out at your favorite store for Kendall Jackson. It's on flyer down at Co-op in Calgary if that's where you're tuning in from. And our friends at the Edmonton Symphony Orchestra want to remind you that holidays at the Winspear are now on sale online at winspearcenter.com. They've got some great events going on through the holidays, including Hollywood for the holidays. All Hollywood film music. We're talking like Disney and the big blockbusters, Star Wars, Harry Potter, performed by a full orchestra in the acoustically perfect Winspear Center Concert Hall. There's more too. Frozen, Beauty and the Beast, The Sound of Music, The Nightmare Before Christmas, Star Wars. I love it. winspearcenter.com. You know that youth tickets start at $15 to go see the Edmonton Symphony Orchestra? $15 to get your kids out to the symphony. I love it. What a cool holiday idea. Our next two guests are ones, quite frankly, I read everything they write. It's true. I respect both of them for what they've done in their careers, also just for their perspectives, their gut instincts, the way that they see the world. So when we decided to put out a year-in review call, these were the first two calls that we made. And I'm thrilled that both have agreed to take us through the year that was 2021. Jana Pruden is an award-winning feature writer at the Globe and Mail, a former crime bureau chief of the Edmonton Journal. She previously was at the Regina Leader Post, the Medicine Hat News, also a sessional journalism instructor at MacEwan University. Supriya Dwivedi is senior counsel at Enterprise Canada, former AM radio host in Toronto, visiting researcher at Ryerson University, a regular panelist on CBC's Power and Politics, and of course, a member of our Real Talk editorial board. It's great to see both of you. Jana, this is your Real Talk debut, which means that we have never seen your Zoom background before. Most people hear this on the podcast, but I have to say, that's one of the coolest Zoom backgrounds I've ever seen. Was this something that was specifically curated in 2021?
Yeah, actually last year, around this time, I was finishing teaching a course at MacEwan. And I always, when I do something extra outside of my day-to-day work, I decide to put some of the money to buy something extra. So it was a very dark time last year, if we remember. Maybe we're getting some hints of it again this year. And so I decided to buy myself a neon sign that said, "Stories will save us," which is something I really believe. And I bought it as a present for myself from a local neon manufacturer, and I have been enjoying it ever since.
I love it. Stories will save us. We've asked the two of you to reflect back on the year that was and get into some of the stories that really resonated with you, the ones that made an impact on you. Jana, one in particular, I want to talk about one that you wrote about an Edmonton member of parliament that just absolutely knocked my socks off. I sent you a message a couple of weeks ago. I read it 3 or 4 times already. Supriya, I know that obviously, as a political commentator, a lot of the big stories of 2021 will probably revolve around politics. But if you look back on the year that was, what would you say was the biggest story of 2021 on your radar?
I mean, aside from 2021 being a bit of a dumpster fire, I would say that it would have to be the pandemic, right? I mean, Jenna's absolutely right. This time last year, I would argue was a lot darker, just for the sole fact that vaccines were still this thing that were somewhat, abstract to a lot of Canadians. And, we do have vaccinations. We're getting those third doses or boosters out into arms as quickly as possible. We have therapeutics, as you and Sarah, we're talking about, including some of these, newly approved therapeutics that are all cause for optimism. But it's fucking Groundhog's Day, man. We keep making the same friggin' mistakes over and over again. This virus is airborne, and we're just not treating it as such. And until we do, I fear we're just going to make the same mistakes again, over and over and over again.
Jana, take us back to July 1st. You're on assignment at the second biggest mall in the world. What's going on? What was going through your head that day? This was essentially the kickoff, the launch of Alberta's best summer ever. A lot of restrictions lifted on that day, July 1st.
Yeah. So, and if people remember, we were really the first in the entire country to go back to that level of openness. So I pitched to my editors, we're open for summer. There's been this big announcement. It's a very official sort of mission accomplished kind of opening. So I'd love to do a story in Edmonton or in Alberta that's sort of what it's like the first day of the new return to the old world or something, whatever it was. And so when I thought about how are we going to do that, of course, West Edmonton Mall seemed like the perfect place to go. And so I headed to the mall, and I actually went at midnight the day before. So I was there at the moment they were lifted. There was one restaurant open, Hudson's. And so I was there that night, and then I went back the next morning as people were, tentatively taking off their masks and walking around a little bit. And, it was a very surreal day and a very surreal experience. And all I kept thinking about, I had recently watched the movie Jaws. And there's a scene where the mayor is like, we have to be open for, July 4th, and it's totally safe. And that story begins at the water park for a reason, because I was watching people, paddle around with their masks and sort of enjoying this idea of the way things used to be, but it seemed a little bit too good to be true. And in fact, we now know that it was.
Yeah, it's really, quite frankly, from a political standpoint, and obviously both of you can chime in on this, but Supriya, I'm sure that you were paying attention to it. It's the one thing that Alberta's Premier Jason Kenney has acknowledged was a misstep or a mistake on his part, was the best summer ever. He talked about in an interview with Rick Bell just a couple of days ago. I'm not sure if you saw the bat soup Wuhan comment that the Premier made, which is unbelievable. We can chime in on that if you'd like. But that was the one thing. He said best summer ever. He said he acknowledged he was overly enthusiastic about that.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think part of what went so wrong in Alberta wasn't just the preemptive lifting of restrictions or some of these public health measures, right? It was like the chutzpah that went all around it. And I think when you have members, high-ranking members of the Premier's staff basically accusing folks of fear-mongering and not listening to public health experts and doctors on the ground who are like, hello, we're going to be inundated with a bunch of cases and we're already stretched rather thin. And you have the Premier, you know, putting out merch and swag for like best summer ever. Like, obviously that was going to come back to bite him in the butt. And I think what gets me about all this is that you don't even really have to be much of an expert to just understand how exponents work. This is stuff that we learn in middle school, for crying out loud. And yet we're still sort of ignoring this. And yeah, I mean, I read that the year end, and I don't understand why he had to have that little, you know, a racist dig in there about bat soup. And it behooves me that the guy who was like in charge of making inroads under the Harper government for, you know, some of these communities that are either racialized or what have you, is now making like comments like this and sees no issue with it.
Yeah. Jana, I noticed a sort of a physical reaction from you when I mentioned that. I'm sure you saw the quote or saw the article. What do you make of the Premier's communication style around this?
Well, you know, I didn't see it because I've been in a real like research role. I have a big feature that I've turned around quite quickly that's dropping on Sunday. So even like yesterday, I didn't, you know, look at any social media, anything till the end of the day. I was just incredibly focused. My editor called me in the evening to discuss something, and she was like, oh, it's, you know, it's wild out there today. It's a really dark day. And that was when I looked at Twitter, I saw, of course, you know, it was like a banner day for doom scrolling. And so I logged in for a minute and then I was back to editing. So I've missed everything.
Here's the clip. So he's talking to Rick Bell and he says, quote, who knows what the next variant that gets thrown up is? I don't know. And what's the next bat soup thing out of Wuhan? I don't know. I've learned from bitter experience not to make predictions about this. So that's the quote from Alberta's Premier, Jason Kenney. I thought it was that's the kind of thing that you expect to hear from, I don't want to disparage any profession. I was going to say the guy that comes by to whatever, or the person
that's like an anonymous troll comment.
It's like an anonymous troll comment, or it's like the one guy sitting at the bar that kind of makes the comment and the rest of the bar kind of like, a couple people kind of nervously laugh and a couple people roll their eyes and someone gets up and walks out. It's kind of that guy at the bar. It's that kind of comments as far as I'm concerned. Why don't we talk about the federal election? We'll talk big picture about the implications. But first, Jana, you wrote a feature on the second NDP member of parliament elected in the province of Alberta. You got Heather McPherson in Edmonton, Strathcona, and then Blake Desjardins comes in and knocks off Kerry Diot, who had made quick work out of the previous NDP challenger in the riding of Edmonton-Griesbach. I thought I knew Blake Desjardins, and then I read your feature. I don't care about your partisan politics. What a human being.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm not a hardcore political person. I'm sort of like a responsible citizen level of engagement. I'm not a, hardcore political watcher. But, so I hadn't been fully engaged with all aspects of the election. On election night, I was just like, oh, holy crap, look what's happening over there. And I read a tiny bit about him, and he just seemed like such an interesting person. And again, I don't typically write political profiles, but I pitched this profile, and I truly think, I really encourage people to read this piece, not just because I wrote it, but because he is a really fascinating person. One of our meetings got delayed because he was out walking through his district, passing out like care things to people, working at, I don't know, food or supplies. He's a real humanitarian. He's a really fascinating person. And he is someone, if he can survive in the blood sport of Ottawa, I feel like the sky's the limit. I left that meeting thinking, it wouldn't surprise me if this man is prime minister one day. And, in terms of surviving that system, given everything he's been through, that he can come to this point and be so passionate and driven and non-cynical and humanitarian and up for the fight. He is really a very impressive person. I think a very principled person. And, the kind of, sometimes we hear people grousing about politics and saying, I just want a politician who's like a real person who does what he says. And boy, that's definitely how Blake Desjardins impressed me. And I should note, I don't live in that area, so it has nothing to do with, I don't live in that district.
Well, the beauty of it, and Jana, again, I'm not going to sit here and gush about how much I appreciate your writing, but I save that for private messages to you. But you write like nobody else does. The beauty of the feature is that it's not necessarily a political feature, and you're and I promise not to spoil the column because people have to read it. People have to read the feature. I won't wreck it. But I will say, it's one that you go, he was late because he was doing stuff for the community or handing things out, and people go, yeah. I've seen politicians do that before. They show up, they flip pancakes for 5 minutes, they hand out a couple food hampers. Donald Trump throws a few rolls of paper towel to people, and then they're on their way. It's the story of his mother. It's the story of his sister. It's the story of why he originally left Alberta. It's the story of why he came back. It's the story of why he ran and what his sister or what his family was telling him while he was running and after he won. And I mean, I'm getting chills right now. So it's an incredible feature. Supriya, zooming way out, the story of the election was that the Liberals wanted a majority government. They had to try to convince Canadians that the time was right for an election. The Conservatives appeared to be pissed off that they were being called to an election. And ultimately, the result was essentially the same, another minority government for the Trudeau Liberals. As you look back on 2021, what jumps out at you about that federal election?
I mean, I think the inability at the start of the campaign for the Liberals to really put the case as to A, why they called the election, and B, why they were supposed to be, the ones that folks should vote for. And I know there are a few things that happened that were beyond, their control. Clearly, the takeover in Afghanistan from the Taliban was something that I don't think very many people expected, particularly the speed at which it happened, right? And so that's all well, and that's fine, I suppose, it being an external thing that you can't really control. But in terms of messaging, I mean, I've just found it very interesting that they couldn't actually make the case that, climate change was on the ballot, childcare was on the ballot, pandemic management in terms of what the federal government can and can't do was on the ballot. And I think they got there eventually. But given that, we are now again in this situation where we have cases steadily climbing up across the country, and we're all sort of worried and hoping that hospitalizations and ICUs eventually decouple from those cases. And there is some reason for cautious optimism from data from other jurisdictions about Omicron being slightly less virulent. It seems like a huge wasted opportunity to me that we didn't actually really talk about healthcare in the middle of a pandemic in an election. And the only time we talked about healthcare was when we talked about it in the context of this clip that Krista Freeland had posted to her Twitter account, where, she clipped O'Toole, a chunk of him saying something about privatized healthcare. And then we never got into the substance or the meat of it. And what was even sillier about all this is that everything O'Toole said in that clip was very, non-controversial things for a conservative to say.
Minister Freeland kind of got burned on that one, actually, when Twitter essentially suspended the tweet or flagged it for misinformation, for inaccurate information. I would say it's safe to say that one blew up in her face for sure.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, here we are, and we didn't have a debate around healthcare, and we're in the middle of a pandemic. Yeah. So it's just very, very silly.
If the pandemic, and I don't think the federal election was the story of 2021, if the pandemic wasn't, it certainly was Canada's history of residential schools, the discovery or rediscovery or the reminder about thousands of unmarked graves on the sites of former residential schools across the country. Jana, obviously we could approach a conversation about this from a million different directions. As a journalist, as a feature writer, as someone who thinks deeply about things like this, issues that matter, how have you been processing this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the issue is even more broadly expanded to really, Indigenous rights and treaty rights when we're thinking about some of the protests that have been ongoing, the land defenders, the issues around that, to me is part of this one big story. And in a general sense, I feel like we're at a time right now where everything is coming up, all the old wounds, all the old secrets, everything is coming out, and it's very, very painful. But I think in the end, it's really positive. And I personally have seen, and I hope that it's changing the minds of a lot of people. You know, it wouldn't surprise me 5 years ago, 10 years ago, the average Canadian, white Canadian, if you ask them, you know, what happened at residential schools, that they would not be able to tell you. And suddenly there's been this real awakening, and it is a painful awakening. But some people I know that you would sort of describe as like good old rednecks, maybe, who wouldn't have been, you know, fully up on social issues in the past, are really connecting with some of these issues. And a lot of my friends who are Indigenous, you know, I think are being having a moment to speak more, to have more platform, to be listened to, to be actually listened to. And those are huge transformative moments in this country. So even though it has been so painful, I feel like we could be entering, and I hope we are entering, a new phase in terms of the treatment of Indigenous people, listening to Indigenous people, the rights of Indigenous people, and covering that story as I did quite a bit. You know, one of the things that really stood out to me was how meaningful it was to many people that they were finally believed. And that is a really huge moment to me in this country and in our history. And that's probably the thing that will stand out to me the most this year.
Supriya, obviously, as Jana has just alluded to, this is an ongoing journey for this country, for the people in this country, regardless of how they might identify with regards to their connection to this country. When you look back on 2021 in this context, what will you remember about it?
I think what you said in terms of us being reminded of the horrors and the atrocities that went on at residential schools is a really, you know, accurate way to frame it, because it's almost as though we constantly need Indigenous people to show us their pain and suffering, and to have it in splashed over headlines, and to have these, you know, very re-traumatizing interviews from members of the community in order for Canadians writ large to believe them. And I'm putting that in air quotes because clearly this has all been documented before. And, you know, it's like we're just revisiting this over and over again. I mean, I share a lot of that cautious optimism. What I worry about is, you know, the speed in which progress occurs. It's clearly going too slow. And when we're talking about, you know, some of the larger issues, if you want to zoom out, I mean, there's so many systemic injustices that Canada continues to, you know, perpetrate against Indigenous peoples. And I just, you know, don't want Canadians to lose sight of that. And I worry that there ends up being a little bit of, oh, well, okay, wasn't that last year's issue? You know what I mean? Because like there is a sense of fatigue about this, and like we can't be fatigued over this because it's still happening. These injustices continue to occur, whether we're talking about, you know, the overrepresentation of Indigenous people in the prison system, not having access to potable water, or the abhorrent and appalling, you know, treatment that Indigenous people receive in the healthcare system. Like all of these still exist. And they're not some like, you know, relics of our Canadian past. And, you know, wrongs need to be righted. And this is a wrong that is yet to be righted and that we need to right.
Yeah, well said. I mean, we referenced Idle No More through the years, another movement that saw a lot of attention and some traction in Canada. And if you look, you know, I hate to describe it as sort of petering out over time, but that's kind of what happened. People go back to their everyday lives. The news cycle is quick. People are busy. Not that the issues do not demand our attention or demand our respect or our investment. That is what happens. I know that there are millions of Canadians that would feel the way that both of you do about this and about the country making an ongoing commitment to making this right. We're going to run up against the clock. We've got so much to talk about here. I mean, how do you ignore climate change? How do you ignore the issues around the environment? How do you ignore Lytton, British Columbia, seeing record high temperatures, flirting with 50 degrees Celsius, and then essentially being wiped off the map by wildfires? What about the Coquihalla Highway just knocked out, the entire highway infrastructure knocked out by mudslides and floods? I mean, Jana, you know, we've talked to some people that have different perspectives on what this means with regards to what Canada spends on infrastructure, how we approach climate change related or environmental legislation, et cetera. What angle do you approach, or when you look back on 2021 in the context of environmental stories, what really resonates or sticks with you?
I mean, I guess maybe even if I'm a cynical old journalist, there's some part of me that's optimistic that, you know, similar to the residential school issue, that I hope that maybe this is something people cannot ignore anymore. That when you see whole communities burning down, when you feel, I mean, the temperature in our house, we don't have air conditioning. The temperature in our house got up to 35 degrees at one point, and even our basement was getting smoking hot. So, you know, at a certain point that starts to hit home for people, and I hope it starts to hit home for people. And then we, you know, press politicians to change legislation and to make changes that are actually significant. So that is my hope with both of those issues, that things being so bad can be a turning point and can make people understand how serious the situation is and push for change. And I think it's hard for me to allow myself to look at the pessimistic view of that, because that's a pretty dark place. And I'm a crime reporter, so if it's a dark place, it is definitely a dark place.
You've been to dark places. You've written about them before. That's for sure. So, and Supriya, I really like the idea of what Jana puts out there as like a turning point. Whether it was the mudslides, whether it was the record temperatures, maybe it was COP26, the climate change conference in Glasgow. In the context of climate and the environment, 2021, what will you remember?
I think I'll remember, I mean, all of the horrific pictures that, and, you know, dystopian like images that came out of some of these climate crises. You know, we're talking about British Columbia, but really there are many parts of the world that saw really terrible, you know, extreme weather events that were caused by climate change. And it's like, you know, if not now, when? Like, if we're not going to act now as a country in terms of putting forward actual solutions, reinforcing our infrastructure so that it's resilient in the face of, you know, what is now going to be an unfortunate new normal, then like, when the fuck are we going to do it? And I mean, I think it took us way too long to get here. We shouldn't have had to have nearly, you know, 600 people die in a heat dome in British Columbia, or have these sort of catastrophic flooding conditions for us to sort of wake up. But, you know, hopefully that does inspire change. I mean, I don't know if your listeners and viewers probably get a sense that I'm a little bit less optimistic than Jana is, but hopefully I can inject some of that optimism into my veins going into 2022.
Well, that's okay. And that's a good exercise. It's good to find that balance, right? I think everyone here would agree on that. I want to put, I mean, Sarah's done an amazing job looking back on some of the so-called biggest or most noteworthy stories of 2021. And I'm going to go through the rest on our list here and ask each of you to comment on one or two quickly as we thank you for your time and wish you a happy holiday season. Who will forget the protests at Fairy Creek, located near Port Renfrew, British Columbia, a coastal town on the southern tip of Vancouver Island? The demonstrations have been ongoing since August 2020, described as one of the largest acts of civil disobedience in Canadian history. The plight of the old growth forest, so to speak, and a lot of factors to that. We've covered that from a number of different angles. The absolutely abhorrent, horrific, hate-motivated attack that claimed 5 members of the Afzal family that were out for an evening walk back on June 6th when they were run over by a truck in what police say was a hate-motivated attack. Daughter Yumna, age 15, mother Madiha, 44, grandmother Talat, 74, father Salman, 46, all died. Their son Fayez, 9 years of age, survived. What about Canada's Olympic entry, the Summer Olympic entry? This is obviously a huge moment for Canadian sport when the women's soccer team claimed the gold medal on August 6th at the Tokyo Olympic Games. For those watching on YouTube, that's Julia Grasso, who's celebrating with her teammates after scoring the winning penalty shot in a shootout against the Swedes. Of course, Canada's relationship with China, the two Michaels, released after, more than 1,000 days, detained by the Chinese Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig, what was considered to be a retaliatory act after Meng Wanzhou, a Huawei executive, detained in Vancouver at the Americans' request. The two Michaels returned home to Canadian soil on September 25th. And then, of course, the billionaire space race. We saw Elon Musk's SpaceX, Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin, and Sir Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic, boasting about a future filled with exoplanetary tourism. The heads of these private companies making good on their myriad of promises, successfully launching all 3 of them in 2021. Supriya, of those stories, you want to comment on one or two as we wrap?
I mean, I would no disrespect to our Olympic athletes or to Miss Grosso with that goal, but I didn't even fucking remember that was this year. So much has happened that it totally escaped me. So, I mean, thank you for the reminder, I suppose.
There you go. It's why these segments are important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jana?
Well, I would talk about any of them other than the Space Bros, because I really I'm cringing even seeing those images, and that's not something I want to use my breath for. I mean, I think in a general sense, when you see all of this stuff that happened this year, and it was so chaotic and so dramatic and so dystopian at moments, you imagine if a few years ago you saw pictures of BC and everyone wearing masks and all of that, it would be so terrifying, this future that we're living in. And I have thought often about, in 2016, I was sent to the States to help work on the election where Donald Trump was elected. And when I was back in Edmonton, I was taking a cab home and talking to the cab driver about it. And he said, we're entering a time in the world where everybody is showing who they really are. And I've thought about that so many times in the years since. And in this year where we have been pushed and challenged and terrified in so many different ways, I do cling to that people are showing who they really are, and that some people are showing how brave they are, how courageous they are, how healthcare workers, what they are doing every single day, how people will go and help people after these devastating incidents, how people will help each other. And I guess, again, that's the crime reporter in me. If I focus too much on, the bad things, it's impossible to proceed with it. But to think about how many people have put themselves on the line, whether it's just wearing a mask, whether it's staying home, whether it's working on the front lines to help other people, really, I think it's a profoundly beautiful thing that's easy to miss with all of the other crap and dystopian hellscape. So that's my story of the year, is you know what? A lot of people are really good and really brave and really generous and really want to help each other. And we realize, literally, we are connected to every other person on the planet. We literally are now. We can see that, one person gets sick a far way away and it can come into our home. And that's a lesson that I take from this year and from last year, and I hope maybe some other people do as well.
Jana, we need to hang out more. I need some of that optimism to rub off on me, man. Because that was beautiful.
There you go. And then Supriya can remind you that sometimes things are just completely fucked. So there you go. Two of my absolute favorites. Could not appreciate the two of you any more than I already do. This feels like an early Christmas gift, having you both on the show. Jana Pruden from the Globe and Mail. Read that Blake Desjardins piece if you've not already. And of course, one of our favorites, our go-to, Supriya Dwivedi. Happy holidays to you both, and thanks for doing this.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Thank you so much. We'll hang out soon, too, as well.
There you go. We'll make it happen. All right. Thanks to the two of them. I love those two. Great stuff. We're going to get to the original hockey insider. They call him Bobby Margarita, Bob McKenzie, in just a second. I want to remind you, if you're headed out of town for the holidays, if you're going to be flying out of Edmonton's International Airport, or even if you're saying, I'm going to wait, we're not traveling for another 3 or 6 or 9 months, you can book your parking at Jet Set Parking right now for travel until the end of 2022. You've still got 53 weeks to go. 53 weeks where you can advance book your parking for $5 a day. I bounce in my chair when I say it. $5 a day. That's less than a latte if you use the promo code REALTALK at jetsetparking.com. The promo code REALTALK for travel by the end of 2022, pre-booked at jetsetparking.com. Hey, due to wild popularity, our friends at Friesen Brothers want you to know that those all-you-can-eat, the Christmas feasts, they've ended for the season. Don't be showing up this weekend looking for that, okay? And the pick-up Christmas dinner boxes are sold out in South Edmonton's Rabbit Hill store and in Stony Plain. But here's good news. You can still pick them up in Fort Saskatchewan. The Fort Saskatchewan Friesen Brothers store, by the way, you go there, you pick up your dinner box. Maybe you drove 15, 20 minutes to get out there. You sit down, you have a slice of pizza, you have a cold craft beer. It's worth the trip. Trust me. You can find out more details and order yours at friesen.com. And we mentioned them earlier in the show, our friends at Kubi Energy. Of course, they're providing solar energy solutions to power your life. If you go with Kubi, you get solar on your house. Why not sign up over at Park Power as well and find out more about their buyback program? It could make even more sense financially when you go with Kubi Energy at kubienergy.ca. Bob McKenzie in just a second. Of course, this is a Thursday tradition on the show. You know this. On behalf of our friends at Prairie Catering, we keep an eye on what's happening in the world around us. We take note, and then we offer somebody an opportunity to eat your words. Presented by Prairie Catering. And in today's edition, I'd like to just roll tape on a call-in segment. This is a brief exchange on a show I'd never heard of before, but I fell in love with the host immediately. Here's an excerpt from a recent episode of the Thom Hartmann program. Let's roll it.
Hey Tom. I was listening to you for the last hour or so. I heard survival of the fittest. Some of us choose not to vaccinate because
you're nuts, Nicholas.
we work very hard about staying fit, eating healthy, and our natural immune system.
So, Nicholas, if you're so healthy, would you have unprotected sex with somebody who has syphilis or gonorrhea?
You're missing the point.
No, I'm not missing the point. They're contagious diseases. Would you have unprotected sex with somebody who has syphilis and gonorrhea and not worry about it because you're so healthy?
No, I wouldn't do that.
Okay, then why would you expose yourself to COVID without having some protection?
Because the protection is my natural immunity.
No, it's not. Tell that to 800,000 dead Americans. Nicholas, this is a stupid conversation, and I'm not going to continue it.
Okay, so, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thom Hartmann program. I am a new fan, and that is how you invite somebody to eat your words. Presented by Prairie Catering. A reminder, no matter what your holiday plan looks like, Prairie Catering is happy to be a part of it. From a small virtual gathering all the way up to something in-house. You want to skip the work? Check out what they're doing and place your order at prairiecatering.ca. Plus, their brand new restaurant at the Art Gallery of Alberta, May, stunningly beautiful. They're accepting New Year's Eve reservations, 2 seatings at 5 and 8 p.m. Requires a $50 deposit. You can book their table. Again, get in touch with them, prairiecatering.ca. Well, this next guy is the hockey insider. If you follow hockey anywhere in the world, you know Bob McKenzie. More than 40 years experience covering the sport. He's the original insider, providing analysis for the NHL on TSN, as well as for the IIHF World Junior Hockey Championships, the NHL Draft, the NHL Trade Deadline, free agency, and, of course, multiple Olympic Winter Games. Plus, he's known to his friends as Bobby Margarita, the man behind a brand new beverage that people are absolutely loving. Joining us live, it's Bob McKenzie making his Real Talk debut. It's good to see your face, pal. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks very much for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm gonna take this more like in the Eastern time zone and let people. It's now 11:16, and so I feel like it's appropriate to get into a margarita. Plus lime is kind of like fruit juice, breakfast drink.
Exactly, it's healthy.
Yeah, the Bobby Margarita, the Bobby Margarita brand. Want to thank you for shipping a few of these our way here. This is really taking off. How this was like a nickname for you. This turned into a product. How did this come about?
Yeah, we had a persona, a name before we had a brand before we had a product, so to speak. Never really intended to ever have a ready-to-drink cocktail with my name on it, but we kind of leaned into the fun of the whole Bobby Margarita persona, which is something I did for a lark 5 years ago when I was on vacation and threw it on social media and changed my name from Bob McKenzie to Bobby Margarita. People kind of got a kick out of it. I got a kick out of it. I've leaned into it since then. And then last March, just serendipity occurred. Me and my son made contact with somebody on something that was totally unrelated. And that person worked for the Ace Beverage Company that does Cottage Springs and Ace Hill and all the great ready-to-drink cocktails that are so big, certainly in Ontario, but all across Canada. And here we are 9 months later, and we've got a Bobby Margarita ready-to-drink cocktail that launched in Alberta in December, of all places, which is a testament to a number of things, which you would know all too well. Number one, it's easier to get in the Alberta liquor market than any other province in Canada.
Yeah.
There's not as much oversight, if you want to call it that,
not a lot of red
from the
tape.
Government. Not a lot of red tape, and that's number one. And number two, you wouldn't think, in most provinces, if you were to say, what's the biggest month for sales of ready-to-drink cocktails in Ontario or BC or anywhere else, they would basically tell you, well, it's going to be June or July or August. When the weather's hot and sticky, that's the time to have a ready-to-drink cold cocktail. But in Alberta, I'm told, as a newfound booze mogul, December is the biggest month for ready-to-drink cocktails in Alberta. So you know what I say to that? God bless Alberta.
God bless Alberta, pal. We're all about free trade and pre-mixed, ready-mixed cocktails in the month of December. I can say it's a great shotgunner. It's a great hot tub accompaniment. So there you have it. And I will also say, having released the Jespo Pisco Sour with Sea Change earlier this year, it's a hell of a thing, isn't it? Walking into a party with your pals and handing them a couple of cold cans of your beverage is pretty special.
I jokingly said that I never realized, 40 plus years in the media, when you're in the media, especially the older school, back in when I started, late 70s, early 80s, the 80s and 90s, media people, they lived a hard lifestyle. There was a lot of time spent in bars. And I didn't realize that all that time misbehaving through the 80s and 90s was actually just research and development. So
yeah, if only you could go back and write it all off, Bob. Just think.
I want to go back and calculate all that money spent.
Yeah, think of the money you would have saved.
If there's a Revenue Canada exemption for all that money spent, which is really just an investment in my future as a booze mogul.
Yeah, no kidding. The announcement, I think a lot of people probably saw it coming. The NHL officially withdrawing from the Beijing Olympic Games. I know that it's a huge disappointment for probably all of the players, most especially those that probably this would be their last Olympic Games. And Steven Stamkos really wants to get there. Sidney Crosby wants to get there. I know even the younger guys, Connor McDavid's chomping at the bit. Everybody wanted to see Cale Makar in the Olympic Games. Was this one that you went, tell me something we didn't know 2 weeks ago, or were you surprised a little bit?
Not really surprised at all. I mean, this whole Omicron thing has escalated so damn quickly, and we're right back in the soup, so to speak. And it is different. And I know there's been, now the debates are, and Steve Yzerman voiced these as well as some of the people who are in the National Football League and National Basketball Association, and basically saying, well, if the athletes aren't that sick with it, and they're vaccinated, then why postpone games? Why even test them? And I guess the short answer to that is, for now anyways, is if the hospital systems are on the verge of collapse, and again, people say, the ICUs aren't overrun. Others people say the ICUs are overrun. I never have the answer. I'm not smart enough to have the true answer. And I think it varies probably from province to province, city to city, country to country. But we're kind of feeling our way on this one, even more so than the Delta variant that, we had to lock down and whatever. And now, even the epidemiologists, some of them are saying, the NFL model might not be a bad way to go. I listened to an epidemiologist on Hockey Night in Canada last Saturday, and he said it's premature to abandon testing on those athletes. But that might ultimately be where we're headed, because the Omicron might not be as serious as the other variant was. And yet he said it's premature. So whatever the case may be, the Olympics are a non-starter. We kind of figured that. And this is, as I said, rapidly escalated here in the last few weeks. A lot quicker than I think anybody even anticipated it would.
It's obviously so cool to see, you look back through recent history, at least since 2002, and there are these kind of iconic moments, like everyone, Mario Lemieux and his 2 cups, and then you see him with that Canadian flag, and it was like a whole different thing. Or just the other day, I was looking at the 2014 gold medal photo, and I'll be honest, I forgot that PK Subban was on that team, and I was like, oh yeah, the guy never hoisted a cup, but he's got an Olympic gold medal. Theo Fleury found not vindication maybe, but maybe his heart was at peace a little bit, his personal life in turmoil. And as the story goes, correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, if anybody would know, you would know, but I had heard that Gretzky had really wanted Theo on that team in 2002 in Salt Lake City to be a part of that gold medal win, whether that's true or not. I think of Iggy.
Yeah, I think that's true.
And Iggy, the pass to Sid, the golden goal. Iggy never got his cup, but he's got, gold. And in your mind, some people have suggested there should be a World Cup of hockey instead of competing at the Olympic Games. Some people have suggested the World Junior Tournament should be the international tournament at the Olympics every 4th year. What do you see bigger picture? Like, if you're the NHL commissioner, what role do you see the NHL having longer term in the Olympic Games? Do you think it's a good fit?
Well, the NHL doesn't like to do it. The owners don't like to do it. They don't like to shut down their business for almost 3 weeks in the middle of the season. It derails momentum. The players really, really, really love it and want to do it. So as long as the players want to do it, then it's part of the equation. And we would have been doing it this time around, if not for COVID. Simple as that. That's the only reason that's not happening. And so it should happen in 2026 or whenever they have the next Olympic Games. The NHL has been trying to, sell and market the World Cup, not necessarily as a replacement for the Olympics, but to be a revenue generator, to try and be a standalone event. And as long as you have the World Cup of hockey in September before the season begins, it's never going to be the same as putting the 5 rings on it and calling it Olympics. Just never is. Now, I honestly believe that if the NHL decided, you know what, we're going to get away from the Olympics, dealing with the IOC is not easy. Let's do the World Cup of hockey, but let's do it. Let's shut down our season in February as we would for the Olympics. And now let's take ownership of the World Cup of hockey. And I realize it doesn't have the 5 rings, but I have to believe that hockey fans all over the world would buy into the World Cup of hockey a lot more if it was happening in mid-season on sort of a level playing field for all the countries.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. Who's your cup pick this year, by the way? Do you have one? I mean, everything's been so thrown out of whack.
Two answers there. Number one, even when I was working full-time and being the hockey insider, I never, ever made predictions because I had no clue. So whenever I would get a question, I'd say, you probably know better than I do. Anybody's opinion is just an opinion. But now that I'm more hockey outsider than insider. I barely watched an NHL game for October and November when I was fully retired in those 2 months. I've come back to work here with a vengeance in December and most of January with the World Juniors and some draft rankings and some Leaf games that I have to do as part of my contract. So I don't really have a sense. It seems to me like there's no one team that is absolutely dominant. I mean, Tampa seems to be soldiering on in spite of the fact they had to turn over a significant part of their roster because of salary cap considerations. They're never a bad pick, but I don't know if we could ever envision a team winning 3 cups in a row in a salary cap world. But
yeah.
Tampa would certainly have that opportunity. But I mean, when you're looking at and seeing the Rangers with like the 700 win percentage or whatever it is, the Leafs with a big win percentage, but I look at teams like Colorado and some of the other ones that everybody's favorite pick at the beginning of the year because they've got Makar, they've got McKinnon, they've got Landeskog, they've got Rantanen, they've got so many good players. Is that a team whose time is arriving? So short answer is I don't know, especially now that I'm more hockey outsider than insider.
I'm desperate to see McDavid and Draisaitl go on a heater because I threw a few bucks at 28-1 on the Oilers at the beginning of the year. So I'd love to see it, but I think you and I both know they've got their work cut out for them, and maybe Kenny Holland's got a deal or two to pull if Edmonton's going to be a serious contender, maybe between the pipes as well. You're coming to us right now for people that are listening to this on the podcast. They won't be able to see it, but you're sitting in your vehicle right now. Where are you? You're going to be? I'm assuming. Obviously, you're doing the World Juniors. Are you in Alberta right now or no?
No, not yet. I'm still home. I'm coming out to Edmonton Christmas Day.
Okay.
But I've got 2 pre-tournament games to do in studio at TSN today. 2 p.m. Eastern, we've got Finland, USA, and 7 p.m. Eastern, obviously 5 Mountain Time for you guys. We've got Canada, Russia. So those should be really fun because, again, usually the trying to talk and handicap this tournament, you do it based on what you see from these teams, the identity that they forged in 3 pre-tournament games. Canada was supposed to play Switzerland. They were supposed to play Sweden and Russia. 3 games. Now they got 1 game against Russia tonight. So we'll start to get a handle on what they're all about. But I'm actually in Whitby, Brooklyn, the north end of Whitby. I live up on Balsam Lake. I just dropped my wife off at her sister's place. I'm in a parking lot around the corner. I'm headed into TSN. I've got to go get a COVID test first in order to get to Edmonton and get admitted to my employment. I got to get a COVID test done here in the next hour or so. Then I'm off to studio and we'll get Finland, USA, Canada, Russia. And then tomorrow go visit my grandkids and check into a hotel in Whitby and then head to the airport on Christmas Day. So very glamorous life I lead.
Well, I mean, it's awesome that, you've got some balance there. Obviously travel on Christmas Day, probably not ideal for anybody, but my family is among the literally millions of families that have spent Boxing Day with you and James Duthie and the crew through many World Junior hockey tournaments. It's an incredible tradition. It's amazing to have it in Canada. It's going to feel a little bit different right now as it stands right now. And, of course, this is December 23rd. As it stands right now, 3 days away from Canada's opener on Boxing Day, the arena, Rogers Place, will be at 50% capacity. Remains to be seen how that's going to play out. Things could obviously change, so it won't have that. I mean, I'm sure that there will be people excited to be there, but it won't be the 18,000 sold-out, barn-burning, roof-raising type of party you'd usually get in Canada, but still a very special tournament. Do you have any pre-tournament favorites? Obviously, Canada puts in a strong entry, but it seems to me that parity has been more and more evident in recent years, Bob.
Yeah, you know what? It's there's 5 teams that every World Junior is exactly the same in that there's 5 teams that can win it all. Canada, United States, Russia, Finland, Sweden. Mm-hmm. Any one of those 5 teams could win the gold medal, and you'd go, not really surprised. Canada on home ice is always no worse than a co-favorite. The Russians are very strong this year on paper anyways. You try to look at a team and figure out what when the 19-year-olds, the last year of eligibility guys on the Russian team were at the under 18s, they won. When they were at the under 17s, they won. That cohort of Russian kids has been at or near the top of their age group. Now you're mixing 3-4 cohorts in terms of age, and it gets a little harder to handicap and what have you. But the Russians should be a formidable opponent. This game tonight is interesting because you've got 16-year-old Connor Bedard playing against 16-year-old Matvei Michkov, arguably 2 of the very top guys for the 2023 National Hockey League draft. So the Team Canada-Russia World Junior favorite storyline has a subplot in terms of this 2023 draft, which is fascinating. But the Americans are trying to repeat. One of the interesting stats that I saw was that over the last 9 years, Canada's won 3 gold medals, the Americans have won 3 gold medals, and the Finns have won 3 gold medals. The Finns, never sleep on the Finns. It's remarkable because of the 5 hockey superpowers, Canada, the US, Russia, Sweden, and Finland, the Finns are by far the smallest country in terms of number of registered hockey players, number of covered rinks. What they've done in this last 9-year stretch, having the same number of gold medals as Canada and the United States, is absolutely remarkable. And before you say, well, how can the Russians be a favorite if they haven't even won a gold medal in the last 9 years? I think they've been in 5, maybe 6 gold medal games over that 9 years. They always manage to find a way to lose in the gold medal game, but they're almost always there. So it's going to be a great tournament. I'm really looking forward to it.
Good stuff. Well, whether it's at the rink or on the TV, Bob, I guarantee we'll see you on Boxing Day. Congratulations on the Bobby Margarita venture. Absolutely love it. It's great to connect with you again. Thanks for your time, pal.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, and looking forward to get out to Edmonton.
Yeah, you got it. That's the original hockey insider, Bobby Margarita, Bob McKenzie. Good stuff. I like that. I was trying to figure out the whole time. I felt like it might be a little bit rude to ask him. I was trying to figure out what's he driving?
Yeah.
Were you trying to figure out the same thing?
Looked pretty cush.
Yeah, Bob's done all right for himself. And I was like, my guess is a Benz SUV, but I'm not sure. It had that nice tan leather. It had the double sunroof, which was kind of, I was trying to figure that one out. I bet you there's a real talker that drives the same vehicle that would be able to hook us up in the live chat and let us know what their speculation is, what he was driving.
What I want to know is, how's that margarita?
Yeah, Ryan. I see Ryan Bolin here on the chat. He's going, Jesper, are you drinking one right now? Yeah.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, I'm drinking one right now. It's pretty good. You know what I would love to do? I just had to remind myself. Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah. What I would love to do is pour it over some ice, some rocks. You know, margarita on the rocks. Classic, obviously, but just out of the can. Pretty darn solid.
It's chilled.
It's chilled.
Yeah.
Thanks, Hoyles. We should say behind the scenes. The magic happens behind the scenes. We did not have this can as a prop sitting in front of me ready to grab an hour ahead of showtime. You took it right out of the Real Talk beer fridge with just seconds to go before the interview, so it was perfectly chilled, as my buddy the K-Man would say. I've been chilling that all night. Sam, are you a... that joke's going to make about 6 people laugh, but they're going to love it. Trust me. Are you a margarita guy, Sam?
Oh yeah.
Margarita's
amazing.
Are you a blended or like on the rocks?
I'll take them both ways, but I like a rocks margarita.
Yeah.
Rocks, nice salt rim. I make a mean margarita.
You do.
And then if you're lazy, and I'll only say this, if you're lazy in the summer, you still want something that gives you that nice agave tequila taste, and still is just sort of light and refreshing. Just a tequila soda with a bit of lime is a very smooth, nice, light summer beverage.
Sam, you have hit the nail on the head. My trainer, Graham Duty, who is the most fit man in Edmonton. He's the 15th ranked competitive rower in the world currently, and he's in his 40s. The guy is like, I just show up and I'm just like, just show me the way, Graham. Just show me the way. The disappointing thing about it turns out it's actually commitment, hard work, dedication, eating right, exercise. It's all the things that I unfortunately am unable to do. But Graham told me once that he said tequila soda. He said if you're going to have a drink, tequila soda is one of the cleanest. You know, we're talking alcoholic beverages, obviously, is one of the cleanest drinks you can have with regards to sort of like the health side of things. It's not like a rum and Coke.
Yeah,
it's
but
just like tablespoonfuls of sugar.
If you're having a drink.
But Hoyles, here's where it becomes relevant. If you're having 19 drinks.
Oh, okay, fair.
You know, no, I'm just kidding. Or am I? But if your beverage is like 80 calories and is and people are expecting us to go into like an ad read right now, but we're not going to. And then soda water, not tonic. I was blown away to find out tonic has as much or even more sugar than Coca-Cola.
It doesn't taste like it.
It's why it doesn't taste like it at all, right? I was drinking gin tonics for like years until someone was like, "What are you doing drinking tonic?" And I was like, "What?" Soda. So you kind of keep hydrated. You know, it's a little bit. Then just like you drink like my drink back when I was in the bartending and serving days at Earl's down in Calgary, Double Jack Diet. I had it like on an IV, Double Jack Diet, and then you wake up in the morning, you're just like. In the morning, you know what I mean? Like mix into soda water is what I'm saying.
Okay, I have the exclusive from Bob.
Okay, from McKenzie. Yeah, from Bobby Margarita. What is it?
Genesis GV80.
Oh, he got back to you? He heard us? He heard me saying that? A Genesis GV80.
And then he wrote Tiger Woods SUV rollover.
Oh, wow. That's
look it up.
Well, and so what Bob is suggesting to us is that it's probably pretty highly rated on the safety side. Okay, I'm calling it up on my screen here, Sam. The Genesis GV. This is a sick whip, as they would say. Look at this truck. Look at the grill on it.
Look at the grill on that thing.
I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about the Genesis brand, but when I have seen them out and about, I'm like, oh, they're kind of head turners in a way. You know, okay, Bobby Margarita. I wonder where Genesis is. Where's Genesis? Should we learn this on the fly? This is great radio. People are going to really love this. People, oh great! Now he's live googling on the fact.
Is he googling
Genesis Motors Canada. That doesn't mean it's manufactured here. Genesis, where are they made? Where made? Genesis vehicles, where made? South Korea. Oh, they're a division of the Hyundai Motor Group.
Yeah, I was going to say they're Hyundai's luxury line.
You already knew that.
Yeah.
Sam's just like waiting for me
Stump
to.
Sam.
Well, they're like, you know how like Toyota has Lexus and Honda has Acura. Hyundai has Genesis.
Hyundai has, but I thought the Hyundai Genesis was a vehicle.
I think they split.
So they took the Genesis brand and then that turned into a luxury brand, which I guess for all intents and purposes fooled me and made me think it was a Benzo. So there you go. That's a shout. That's a nice looking vehicle. I've always thought that this is again not a commercial, not an ad. This is just, small talk, chit chat. I've always thought that for the major auto manufacturer that Honda is, that Acura kind of surprised. Acuras are beautiful vehicles. They're great vehicles. Don't get me wrong. But the highest end Acura doesn't come anywhere close to like there's certain big automakers and their luxury brands are not like luxury. Do you know what I'm saying? Like Honda doesn't have, or Acura doesn't have like $140,000 sedan. They don't. So you've got like you've got like Mercedes, right? And there's that kind of relationship to Chrysler. I'm not sure if the waters are muddied or how that actually works. Daimler Benz and all that stuff. I'm probably way behind on the dynamic. But then you've got like your Acura, your Lexus, all that, and it's not as much like there's different levels. Honda's never really pushed one out that was like uber luxury.
There's luxury and then there's luxury.
But you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like Acura is beautiful. My parents drive an Acura. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful vehicle, but you can't get it. I don't think you can get an Acura that's like $150,000, except for like they have their sports cars. The Acura, I think there was like the RX-8, Sam, or whatever it's called.
Yeah, that's actually where I was going to go with this. It's like, and I mean, I'm out of my element here, so I'm speculating. But I think that Honda, like if you think about Honda as a manufacturer, like they're all about precision, performance, like pushing performance specs to the next level. That's why they're so big on racing circuits, right? Yeah. And so I feel like when you get into the high end of Acuras, like it's less the bells and whistles of luxury, and it's more the performance sport aspect that you're paying for.
And by the way, I totally blew it. The RX-8 is Mazda, obviously, but I was just trying to think, what's that? Like, I'm getting confused now. Audi has that R8, which is like ridiculous. It's so sexy. And then I did not know that Acura is actually, the NSX is back out right now. I didn't know that, so that's kind of cool. So Acura, yeah, you're right. Sports performance, absolutely. But I would love to know, I mean, these big decisions, because you look at automakers, they've talked about what, Ford and Dodge and GM are sinking into research on their new EV pickups, and it's like billions of dollars.
As it should be.
And so, and it's exciting. It's amazing. It's going to see what happens, interesting to see what happens in the EV pickup market, the electric pickup market. But if you make and I don't know anything about the industry, I'm speculating, but if you make a wrong move on researching or developing, let alone rolling out a new big, bold initiative as an automaker, and it flops, I mean, you're talking, this is the type of thing, shareholders, market share, reputation, all those kind of things. I mean, the stakes are enormous. There's not a lot of room for misstep, I don't think. Anyway, fascinating stuff. Hey, listen, speaking of Dodge, why don't I give a big shout out to our friends at St. Albert and Sherwood Dodge, a limited time offer right now ending January 3rd. They've got the 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokees. You can save up to $6,900 total discounts. This is what I'm driving right now, the 2021 Grand Cherokee. Absolutely love it. It's got this dial right by the gear shifter, and you can switch it into snow mode. And yeah, it's fantastic. And I'm not going to say it drives itself, because you still got to pay attention. But it's like, we had parents-in-law. I've got my little 6-year-old in the back. Family. What's more important to you than family? Nothing. Road conditions, dodgy, sketchy to say the least. The Grand Cherokee in snow mode, all good. The Jeep brand has been trusted since 1941. I picked mine up at St. Albert Dodge. Of course, St. Albert and Sherwood Dodge, they work together to ensure that you have double the inventory at your fingertips. You can check out their inventory online right now via the sponsors tab on our website. A big shout out to every single one of you that's, whether you want to call it a New Year's resolution or not, maybe you're turning over a new leaf, maybe you just have a plan for January, February. You want to better yourself. You want to learn a little bit more. Maybe you want to get a new career accreditation, kind of reinvent yourself in time for a new look job market. Why not start at Canada's online university? Athabasca University, it gives you world-class accredited online programs, but here's the thing, you can learn at your own pace on a schedule that suits your lifestyle. You want to write off 2 weeks over the holidays? You don't want to crack a book? No problem. You want to hit the ground running? Jan, Feb, you got 40 hours a week you can dedicate to it? perfect. You can learn more at athabascau.ca. Our friends at Eden Landscaping, I mean, speaking of January, February, perfect time to reach out to Mike and his team at Eden to get the ball rolling as they bring your outdoor space to life. You want it ready for June? You want to make sure that in July your kids are going to be out on that new play structure. You've got that pergola over your outdoor cook station. I mean, you can envision it now, but how do you make it happen? It all starts with a visit to landscapeedmonton.ca. And of course, as the holidays approach, who has not yet lined up their dessert plan? If this is you, we encourage you to visit the Dairy Queens of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. They've got their holiday log cakes on for half price. If you mention Real Talk, always a fan favorite, obviously. Irresistible fudge and crunch center, surrounded by vanilla and chocolate soft serve, decorated with your favorite holiday design. Plus, at the Dairy Queens of Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, Westmount, and Baseline Road, they're selling their DQ bucks in support of the Stollery Children's Hospital. $5 donation to the hospital gets you $5 to spend at DQ. It's a win-win at the Dairy Queens of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. Well, we've got an exciting morning coming up tomorrow. We wanted to remind everybody that we're going to be gathering together with our Patreon supporters. We're so grateful for everybody that makes a contribution to the show every month. In exchange, we want to show you a little love, and so we send you the Top Line Report every Monday. That's the insider's look at the results of our question of the week presented by our friends at Y Station. Of course, thanks to our friends at Yag Coffee Club. Also, one Patreon supporter is awarded with a free pound of coffee and some other goodies every single month. And once a year, our last show, typically, of the calendar year, we present our Real Talk Christmas party. And that's going to be tomorrow over Zoom. So if you do support us on Patreon, make sure you check your email, or you can just go to the homepage for the Real Talk Patreon and you'll find the Zoom link there. Hoyles, we're still kind of figuring out that there's going to be a special guest that's going to be joining. Should we just say who the special guest is? I think it's more fun. My wife, Carrie's going to be joining me.
So wasn't it guests?
Yeah. Hoyles. Carrie and Junebug are going to join me. Carrie's due in June. Thank you for saying that. I just got I'm still it's like sort of still hitting me in waves that we're going to have another member of the family.
It's a twofer.
It is a twofer. And it's not Tuesday, or we could really like 2 for Tuesday. And Carrie would just roll her eyes and be like, oh my gosh. She always says, she's always at home. She's always like, why are you yelling? I'm like, I'm not yelling. This is my enthusiastic voice. She's like, why are you doing the broadcast voice? It's not my broadcast voice. It's just my voice. But she's a broadcaster, so it kind of complicates things because she knows what she's talking about. So Carrie's going to join us, and we'll talk about, of course, our new arrival and how excited we are about that. And I know that she's probably going to share some of her holiday tips and tricks. She's a lifestylist at carrieskelton.com, and so I'm looking forward to that. Plus, we are putting together, and we've not yet shared the questions that we're working on, so I'm wondering if you and I are trying to stump one another, and certainly stump Sam, which is going to be our new promotion starting in January, unofficially. But trivia questions, and we're going to have some cool prizes up for grabs, including some Real Talk swag. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, we're going to basically go like deep cuts and Easter eggs from the last year and a bit of Real Talk. Like, do you know if you're a Patreoner, I feel like you're dialed into the Real Talk.
Yeah, we're going to check your knowledge and see where you're at. Speaking of our question of the week, we've asked you to participate in your very own year in review. We've kept the question of the week. You'll notice we're dialing it in just a little bit, tightening it up just a little bit. We want to make sure that you can pop in there for like 2 minutes and quickly share your thoughts with us, share your answers. If you want to spend more time, that's great. There's a lot of fill in the blank kind of stuff if you so choose. We want to gauge where you were at with regards to the stories that resonated with you, some of the issues that certainly jumped out at you or will stick with you, and some of the things that you want to see people speaking more about, which is obviously always very useful as we continue the show into 2022 and look to put together some pretty kick-ass shows for the first week of January. Sam, speaking of families and family photos, you had a couple pretty special photos of your furry gal of Sweet Sophie on a brand new addition to the home. You want to tell us about this?
So Sophie got a little early Christmas present from my parents, and it is a dog bed, and it is a dog bed that is packable and easy to move around with you, and it's good to take camping. And we laid it out, and she wouldn't get off it. Like literally, we were trying to roll this thing up, and she just was like clinging to the last square foot of it on the floor.
So she just loves it.
Yes, and where might you buy one of these wonderful dog beds?
I don't know, Sam. Where would you find a wonderful, comfortable, convenient, affordable, quality dog bed?
At Breathe Outdoors.
You don't
Not
say.
just for humans.
Not just for humans. How cool is that? You know, we got a beautiful dog bed a while back. Dogs hate it. The dogs can't stand it. Seriously, they won't go near it. It's actually outside right now because I'm just like, I don't know what to do with it. This, Sam, is good news for everybody. And you've still got time to pick one up. You can check them out in-store or online at breatheoutdoors.ca. Don't forget they have their winter adventure sale on right now. 40% off some items. And, of course, if you spend a minimum of $30 and you're in store at the till, you let them know that you heard about them on Real Talk, and they'll hook you up with a ceramic mug. I saw somebody yesterday. Was it Sharon or someone else? I wanted to remember the name. Dang it! It's these Bobby Margaritas. Somebody said I went to Breathe Outdoors. They said I went in, bought a pair of boots, mentioned Real Talk, walked out with my ceramic mug. They were like, yeah, it's a thing. Pretty cool thing you got going on there at Breathe Outdoors. I just saw you were trying to, like, stay quiet. You were trying not to, like, burst out laughing. What's going on? Or are you just having so much fun?
This is just a wild time.
You just love working here so much.
So much.
All right.
So much.
All right. Hey, let me remind you about the team. That sounded a little sarcastic.
I was being sarcastic, but I'm not. I'm not. I love it here. I love it.
You're trying to make my heart hurt? You're trying to... Oh, I love these guys. Our friends at Local Waste. Speaking of people I love this family-owned business at Local Waste. 25 years they've been operating. You know what, though? There's a lot of bullshit when it comes to advertising and companies and like, this is what we care about. And then you're like, no, you don't. I spent 7 hours on hold with you. You don't care. The team at Local Waste cares so much so that when they send me talking points, when they say, here's what you can mention, they're like, mention our names. They're like, when people call us in Edmonton at 780-936-8592, or if you're calling us for service in Saskatchewan via their Regina office at 306-992-2913, they're like, tell them to ask for Mikkel. Tell them to ask for Lauren. Tell them to ask for Chris. Like, they want you to know their first names. They literally have the word integrity framed on the wall in their head office. No, it's not my announcement. Not my announcement. Not going to make it. Let me just say that there's exciting news coming up in 2022 with the team at Local Waste. May have just dodged a bullet there. I think that there are sort of like, this is like a relatively big business and there might be some implications to what I might say. So I'll just keep that one to myself. Yeah. This is a time, if you have kids in the house, to tell them to go hit up their iPads, to put on the headphones, to go to the other room. Maybe you put on your headphones. Maybe you go for a little walk. This is going to be the most profane edition of Trash Talk that we've probably ever heard. Real Talkers, you were riled up. These are all real emails that we've received to talk@ryanjesperson.com. And on the last show of every week, courtesy of our friends at Local Waste, we present a little something we call Trash Talk. Yeah, that's right. And this first one comes in from Ronnie. Ronnie was paying attention to the debate on whether or not Alberta should leave Canada. And he wonders, hey, Jesperson, where did you find that guest arguing for Alberta separation? In the Alberta Badlands with all the other fossils? Never invite him back. That was a blood-boiling, annoying interview from an angry old man resolved to yell at clouds. That from Ronnie. All right, Ronnie, this one from Linda. Linda says, I'm going to go there, Jespo. I've never emailed you. I've never chatted on your YouTube page about this, but as I'm getting my courage together to hit up the grocery store, hoping to avoid maddening crowds and still pick up a turkey that won't give us food poisoning or worse, I can feel my temperature rising in lockstep with my blood pressure and my anger. Linda says, this is about those idiots that walk around in the presence of others with their noses hanging out of their masks. They might be selfish, irresponsible, narcissistic, uneducated, science deniers, or any other number of things, but they can't all be mouth breathers. That from Linda. Good luck finding the turkey, Linda. Might I recommend Friesen Brothers. This one from Karen, who says, no, that's my name. I'm not a Karen. She says, today my adult daughter, a fully vaccinated, immunocompromised healthcare worker, tested positive for COVID-19. No laughing matter. She says she was in tears when she called me saying, I just ruined Christmas. We were all going to rapid test before having a small family gathering with just 6 of us, and when she woke up after night shift, her throat was sore. A rapid test proved by PCR that she had showed a positive. She has an unvaccinated 4-year-old she's got to isolate from. That's the hardest part. I tried to console her. I said we'd have a second Christmas in January. Don't sweat it. But I was feeling down, so I called a friend who proceeded to tell me, it makes me wonder why we even bother to be vaccinated in the first place. Karen says, I lost it. I snapped. And I told her the vaccines will hopefully keep my daughter, who's on immune suppressants, out of the hospital. If somebody tells you about their loved one who has COVID, keep your fucking vaccine opinions to yourself. From Real Karen. How about this one from Peter? He says, as a matter of fact, Pissed Off Peter is his name. He says, as a matter of fuck, that would be an amazing t-shirt. Jesperson, you have a platform where thousands of people listen to you daily. True. Like it or not, what you say can influence people. Sure. I am a victim of that platform. Okay. About 7 years ago, when the do you answer your phone or not talk was happening on that radio show you used to do, I fully agreed, and I bought into the nothing can be said over the phone that can't be texted philosophy, but it only took a short 2 or 3 years for me to regret this. He says, I've taken exception with your phones without calls poll. Would you buy a smartphone that couldn't accept calls? He says, specifically you telling people that if they're not family members of yours, not to call you. There's major red flags there, Ryan. You were essentially telling your friends you were not there for them in case of emergency, which in my opinion says a lot about your character. He says also, as my buddy Redbag would say, you questioning my character, kid? He says the second red flag is the fact, and this is kind of sad, the first memory you lose of somebody is their voice. You don't want to be like me where you've had 2 friends call you shortly before their deaths, and I regretfully did not answer. He says, I think back to the one call from my friend almost daily, and I wonder if things might be different if I would have just picked up the phone. I saw my phone vibrating. My exact thought was, why is he calling me? I'll text him in a bit. Okay, obviously a heartbreaker, Peter. He goes back and he says, if there's any advice I could give people, it's don't be selfish and answer the fucking phone. That from Pissed Off Peter. What about this one from Tanya, who says, in the spirit of commercialism, many embrace the time of year. We fill our homes with boxes of things we supposedly need. A word to all of you, oh, that's a good box, I'm going to save it group. You don't need to save the fucking box. It's a box. It served its purpose as a packaging and shipping vessel, and now it needs to go. You probably have like a closet of 100 other boxes that you think, ooh, that's a nice sturdy box. I'll save it just in case. And after 10 boxes, you need to have some real talk with yourself. You're not using those boxes, and you never will. So recycle them, damn it! Because, my friends, such box affinity, what a great band name, Box Affinity, is the slippery slope of boxophilia. And the next thing you know, you're refusing the 10% discount on an item at a store because the box is damaged. You want it to be pristine for some future day. Somebody's going to want to pay you money for your pristine box. Easy, Tanya. Who the hell are these box people? Yeah, maybe there's a tiny box of rabid collectibles who care about the box, but trust me, when you die, your family's not going to cash in on those pristine boxes. They're going to put on all your hockey cards and Lego on Facebook Market or Kijiji for $1 and recycle the boxes. Or if they're really cranky, they'll break them down into pulp and fashion your coffin from it. Good Lord, Tanya. I may have just threatened my loved ones with these consequences because they're just a fucking cardboard quadrilateral meant to serve a temporary purpose. Please respect our environment and recycle. That from Tanya. Do not fuck with Tanya. And you may have noticed in closing that today I am wearing my t-shirt that I only wear once a year. I dedicate this house to the Griswold Family Christmas, one of my favorite t-shirts of all time, and it ties right into this email from Cameron. Cameron says, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to the Real Talkers, Ryan, Sarah, and Sam. And he says, I hope that you enjoy my edit of Clark Griswold, the rant from Christmas Vacation. And so here's his email. Hey, says Cameron. Okay, hey. If any of you are still looking for any last-minute gift ideas for Alberta, I have one. We'd like Jason Kenney, our premier, right here tonight, as I want him brought from his happy holiday slumber over there at the legislature with all the other oil execs, and I want him brought right here with a big old ribbon on his head, and I want to look him straight in the eye, and I want to tell him what a cheap, lying, no good, rotten, four-flushing, low-life, snake-licking, dirt-eating, inbred, overstuffed, ignorant, blood-sucking, dog-kissing, brainless, dickless, hopeless, heartless, fat-ass, bug-eyed, stiff-legged, spotty-lipped, worm-headed sack of monkey shit he is. Hallelujah. Holy shit. Where's the Tylenol? That from Cameron. Tell us how you really feel. Coming up on tomorrow's Real Talk, a private party. You can gain access by supporting us on Patreon via our website, RyanJesperson.com. We're taking next week off to hang out with our families to recharge our batteries, and we'll be back live the first Monday after New Year's Day. That'll be January 3rd. Real Talkers, we love you. Thanks for showing up and keeping it real. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year.